Here.
Member Kowalski,
Here.
Member Fisher is here, Vice President Exum,
Here.
and President Paul.
Here.
I failed to have my mic on.
I heard you.
We do have one modification or, well, either addition, correction, or modification to tonight's agenda for anybody who was looking at the agenda that was posted over the weekend, and that is the addition of, let me see, where is it listed on here? The 10.2 on the administrative reports, we have some information about the roof of the Jean Burkholder Administrative Building that we need to discuss, which was not on last Friday's agenda, so that's been added. I don't believe we have any citizen statements at this point. Okay, so, and no call for an executive session after tonight's meeting. So I would need an approval, please, for tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded, roll call, please.
Member Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton.
Yes.
Member Kowalski,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes. Motion passes, and I don't believe we have any commendations or recognitions tonight.
No.
So moving on, we have no public hearing for tonight's meeting. Any communications that need to be? Nope. Okay, we'll move straight into our administrative reports then for tonight, and starting with 10.1, the Thomas Payne Assistant Principal position.
Okay, so, yes, so I'm here tonight to appeal to the board and ask for, on behalf of the Thomas Payne school family and administrator there, Mr. Majors, to talk a little bit about and give you some rationale for adding an assistant principal position at Thomas Payne for the 21-22 school year. Normally, this would be something that we would be discussing once the renovation project was completed. However, due to some of the areas I'm going to talk to you about, share with you tonight, staffing, some of the special education needs, and some of the cross-categorical classroom support consideration needs, we're advocating to add that position a little earlier than we typically would. So it has been our past practice at not so much King, but at Dr. Williams and at Yankee Ridge. As the building expanded and additional classrooms were added, we added an assistant principal position for a lot of reasons, for FTE considerations, for student enrollment, special programming. Both of those schools have dual language programs. But we have discovered that this is something that is really needed at Thomas Payne. We have a new administrator there, Mr. Majors. He is new to us, but not new to the principalship. He is doing a fantastic job, I just have to say to him. I'm his evaluator, and we can't be more pleased with how he's come in, the work that he's done to engage the students, the staff, families in the middle of a pandemic. His first year coming back to Urbana, he's a tiger at heart, having been a former teacher in our district. But I have to honestly say, this was something we talked about in the spring as an administrative team. We didn't bring it to the board level because we decided in March, in the middle of we were in the middle of our shutdown, and we thought, do we really want to go through the expense? And we knew we wouldn't maybe possibly find a high quality candidate at that point. So we thought, is it worth really discussing this with the board? We made a decision at that time not to bring it to you, thinking about costs, expenses. But as I reflect, had we had a regular school year of in-person learning for everybody in a normal year, this would have been really a difficult situation for the reasons that I'm going to talk about now. Not that I don't think Mr. Majors would have, again, excelled and done a fantastic job, but we want to put him in a position for success. We want the Thomas Payne family and the community there to continue to grow and flourish. And in order to do that and to do it well, at this point, because of the additional needs impacting the building, he does need an assistant principal. So I'm going to go through a little bit of this and just share some of the reasoning why the administrative recommendation is to add that for next year. So as you know, I've kind of shared a little bit already about some of the areas that we've looked at would be staffing, would be student enrollment. So This year, Mr. Majors would have been evaluating 14 non-tenured staff. And I don't know if you guys understand what that means, but for a building of Thomas Payne's size, more than half of the teachers there or the specialists, there are a lot of new specialists there, are basically new teachers. First year, second year, third year teachers. They've experienced some turnover in recent years. This is the second administrator there since Sandy Cooper's retirement. And it has kind of ebbed and flowed in terms of maintaining and retaining teachers. So right now there are a lot of really young, creative, innovative people there, but having that many staff members to evaluate for one person it's a lot. Having done that as a former principal, it is a big task to take on. Not only does the building come with additional staff for evaluation purposes, the building also has a significant number of teaching assistants. So as we've discussed here in the past, when we were talking about the design for the building, you know that the school has 5 cross-categorical classrooms, which the cross-cat program does require additional supports because that is a higher need student population. So those particular students do require additional speech services. There are additional social work services there. So all of that comes with those 5 classrooms are teaching assistants, extra related service staff. There's a lot of therapy that happens in that building with the students that are there. So that alone, looking at the number of classroom teachers that they have, and when you compare staffing, I know I thought I'd give you a comparison to his FTE compared to other buildings. So he has 56 staff members. At Dr. Williams, they have 54. Nowhere near the number of students as Dr. Williams might have, but in terms of the staffing needs and the supervision and management of staff, he is right there with buildings with many, many more students. Yankee Ridge has 70 staff members, but again, they have a significantly larger number of students enrolled at Yankee Ridge. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the IEP needs associated with the 5 cross-categorical classrooms. As you know, we had the former principal there. This was an area that I feel really was a challenge, is keeping up with the annual IEP review requirements, the paperwork requirements, meeting with the special education teams, the number of reevaluations that are required due to these 5 classrooms and the students' discussions that have to happen. And I feel like that was something that the former principal really wanted to do well, but it is a time thief. You know, you're in meetings a lot, I'd go over and visit the building and she'd be in an IEP meeting happening during the middle of the day because that meeting, we set those meetings, those individualized education plan meetings around the parent schedules. So they often do happen during the daytime. And when you're pulling the principal away to be in meetings throughout the day, many, many days, it really does impact the climate and the culture of the rest of the building. Another thing that we've talked about and we've noticed as we've looked at projections, as we've looked at the numbers of students leaving early childhood, coming over to Thomas Payne and into that program, we've noticed that there are a significant number of students that have moved into the district recently that do have some complex medical needs that are currently enrolled at early childhood and will soon then be transitioning from the early childhood program into the cross-categorical classrooms at early childhood. So another area that I think we need to point out, I know I've talked a little bit about the non-tenured staff members associated with the building at large, but there's also a large number of these new staff members that are non-tenured teachers as well. So he currently has, or the school has, 3 resource teachers and 3 TAs. We've added additional speech and language support there in the last year because the needs were significant. We had a speech and language person who left us last year, mid-year, and it was because of the load associated with the number of IP minutes that that person was trying to keep up with, and the number of meetings, same thing that we were talking about for Mr. Majors. So just due to the frequent turnover in TAs, due to the turnover that Thomas Payne has experienced in the last couple of years, the need for the supports and growth that we want to continue to support these young, innovative, and creative teachers, and the kind of pull on his time and the building's time and resources to support the cross-CAT program and do it well, because it is a program that we're very vested in, and we want to make sure that we're giving them the same support, and they're getting the same level of support from the principal that all the other students get. So saying all of that, I know that was a lot, but saying all of that is why we're recommending today, or we're just kind of bringing to the board discussion, that we would like to post a assistant principal position for Thomas Payne for the 21-22 school year. Questions or?
I'm certainly in support of, sorry, sounds like several of us are talking. I'm certainly in support of the posting and recruitment of an assistant principal. I mean, there's obviously a great need based on all that you have discussed here tonight. And I don't see any reason why we would not support this principal and this school in this way. So I'm certainly in support.
One thing that I forgot to mention was funding. Thank you, Tori, for that. One point of note is, you guys know that we have received we have an ESSER grant, CARES grant, whatever you call it, the federal funding. So we have our first allocation of that. We recently received our second CARES ESSER funding grant, and that money is tied very directly to learning loss, working specifically with low-income students, students of color, ELs, and most definitely our students with special needs, and recouping the learning and making sure that those students are experiencing a different education moving forward. That funding is set aside specifically for the group that we're talking about that is at Thomas Payne. Because this would be a new ad, and we don't consider this supplanting, that we could pay for this position and specifically have this position support and work with Mr. Majors with the 5 cross-CAT classrooms and with all the needs associated with that we can cover this out of the CARES grant. And we could do that up through the 23 school year, because we have that money out through 2023. And then the district would take over the cost. And sustainability wise, that would be about the time that we would have been adding the Thomas Payne assistant principal anyway, because the building would be completed at that time. We would hopefully have gone ahead and added those additional classrooms. So that would have been a cost to the district that year anyway. So by being able to pay for the position out of the CARES grant for the first 2 years will help us significantly as well.
Yeah, I'm in support of this. One thing I do notice in listening to you tonight, that is a fair amount of the demand is because of the cross-CAT program. So is there a possibility eventually to build at least a portion of this salary into the special education budget?
Good question. Todd's listening. Did you hear that, Todd?
Yeah,
Just,
I'm listening to that. We can certainly take a look at that within our IDEA funding as from year to year. Yes, that's something we could look at. After the CARE grant money runs out, we can look at paying for a portion of that through special ed funds.
I think that would be appropriate and makes it a little bit more affordable as far as the district budget goes, the general fund budget.
And John, I'm glad you brought that up because I mentioned that we discussed adding this position in the spring and we decided not to. But what we did do through IDA funds was we added additional support to the building, and we call it like a LEA rep. So a local education, is it LEA, local education?
Yeah, local education agency, yeah, representative.
Yes. And that is a person who is able to be in some of the IEP meetings and be there in lieu of the principal in case the principal was not going to be able to be at every single meeting as often as these meetings occur. So we posted for that position in the spring, and that was something that Todd was covering out of IDEA. We thought that that would be enough to really help just free up more of the administrator's time. And I think it did help this year. However, as we reflect, had we had a normal school year and had students in every day with the amount of need and the number of meetings and the time that Mr. Majors would have needed to allocate in order to do it well, even the LEA rep would not have been enough. I don't know, Ty, you can add to that if you think that that's a true statement.
I think that's a true statement. The other thing I would remind the board just as historically is we did have a life skills classroom over at Dr. Williams historically, and we moved that classroom several years ago over to Thomas Payne because of space needs at Dr. Williams and the increased enrollment there. So part of this load at Thomas Payne has been created by the fact that we moved a classroom and some TAs over there. And it was a good move, and it was a good move for consistency of programming, but it did add additional load to the building.
So Todd, do you foresee still needing the LEA with an assistant principal?
I think we can look at that. It wasn't a huge expense, John, because basically what that was we paid a stipend to one of our teachers to do that for additional duty. But probably with the assistant principal, I don't know that we would need that. We could assess that next year and see.
Well, that's another pot of money, if you will, that would help support the assistant principal without damaging any of your other programs.
Sure. Yes.
So all of this makes it a little bit easier to talk about adding administrative salaries as opposed to adding direct teacher salaries. And so if we can identify alternate sources that don't affect our ability to maintain our class sizes with proper teaching, proper number of teachers, then this becomes a little easier to deal with.
Makes sense.
This makes sense to me. I really want to appreciate your transparency on this and laying out the case well beforehand before the posting, as opposed to having something show up for an approval that night.
Good,
So
okay.
that's much appreciated.
Well, and I do need to add, so because I know some of the Thomas Payne family might be watching, when we were out in the building this spring doing the principal search, Miss Franklin and I, Mr. Taylor, we were over just kind of feeling out the building, talking to them about what their hopes, wishes, and dreams were for their new principal. And in every single session, we had a session like that with the parents. We had a session like that with staff. And in both sessions, in every small group or focus group meeting we had talking about the principal, they all said, we need an assistant principal here. And so we really thought hopefully adding the LEA would be enough, because that person would attend meetings and it would really take that burden off. But in thinking about everything that we've dealt with this year and looking at some of their numbers, it is time. And I think the parents have asked, the teachers have asked, and we believe that it's something we need to do in advance of finishing the renovation at the building. So.
I think another need that you didn't talk about, but I perceive is that the construction project at Thomas Payne will be ongoing while the students are there. And we count on our administrators to help be on-site construction manager, if you want to call it that, for the work. And so that will place even a little bit greater load on Tom as Majors as that project is underway. So I can see some significant advantages here from a variety of reasons, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, no, I'm in support of that too, and appreciate the information, Jennifer. I mean, it's good to be reminded that there's many criteria to consider when hiring a support administrative role. I mean, in my mind, I was always thinking in terms of just straight out enrollment, which is kind of what we've been doing, but it's more than that. I mean, it's number of staff and the nature of the classrooms themselves. So it's just kind of good education for us on the complexity of administrating, our classrooms. So, no, I'm in support of this, but I also agree with the points that John was making, that if we can find other sources to support this, valid sources of support, because it is largely special ed, so that we can maintain our administrative dollars, so we don't pull off too many administrative teacher dollars for administration, and we can keep our class sizes reasonable or improve on them even. That would be better still.
Okay.
But I'm certainly in support of moving ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
I echo everybody else. I'm definitely in support. I think the numbers alone, just warrant the need, but also we want somebody with a good special ed background who can really help mentor those teachers. And we need mentorship for all the teachers in the building, it sounds like, but also as John has pointed out with other builds with Yankee Ridge, that when you build improvements to a school, it does attract more students. And so we might see even more kids coming in the coming years when the build is finished, which would warrant even more of a need. So it's obvious it's there. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. I agree with what everybody else has said. Thank you for being so transparent and letting us understand many of the reasons for this. Thank you.
You guys took all my talking points, so
Whew.
Thank you.
go right ahead.
Okay.
So is this something that we'll need to vote on or
No,
tonight or at all?
This is more
It's not a-
informational
It's just informational.
discussion.
That's what I
Yep,
thought.
Like you said, in the spirit of transparency, of course, I did not want to just put it on as a posting. I wanted to make sure you guys understood why we were thinking of doing this sooner, which is, not been our prior practice. So,
No, but I mean, the timing is now if we
Yes.
want to get a really top quality candidate
Yep,
to plan ahead for the
absolutely.
coming school year. So thank you for
and
bringing it
because
now.
we can cover it for the first 2 years through the CARES grant, and it definitely aligns with the goals and vision for how we're going to implement that money and use that
Yep.
funding. I think you're right. It is, the time is now. to do it,
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
Okay, well, it sounds like everybody has weighed in, so we will go ahead and look at pulling together a job description, the posting, and get this up as soon as possible. So thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, coming up with 10.2 on our administrative reports, which is what we did not expect we'd have to talk about we kind of knew we were going to have to talk about it, but that was added to the to the agenda. So I'll let Randy take it over to tell us all the wonderful news he's got to tell us about the roof here at the administration building.
And you guys can't see the little makeshift little barrier that we have kind of protecting the buckets here. So
Can we pan the camera?
and the camera, right, pan the camera.
You can see some of it on TV.
Oh, yeah, you can see it there a little bit on the left.
Yeah.
So,
Good evening, board.
yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I just wanted to say to the public, one of the reasons why we had to amend our agenda tonight was Randy's been working hard trying to get some quotes and better numbers, as we discussed last week about costs. So we want to bring those to you tonight and just get the wishes of the board on how you'd like us to proceed. So Randy.
All right. Good evening. So as 10.2 says, they're just seeking some guidance or next steps from you guys on whether or not to repair or replace the entire roof or the boardroom roof. Jennifer, they got the numbers,
Yes,
right? Okay.
Yes. they
So-
have the
The proposal there. estimates. So for just roof area D, which is a boardroom there, be looking at $60,000, $60,590. And that's to repair the entire roof up there, and replace a 60 by 40 decking area. And that's just what we could see at a quick glance. I'm guessing there's probably going to be a couple more spots of decking that need to be replaced up there. And then that'd be at a $11.10 per square foot additional cost. We also need to, I guess, I think we just need to do it. There's a $10,000 patch that we can put on the roof. And that'd be just one giant piece of rubber that's glued down, and that'll keep the additional rains we're supposed to be getting the end of this week and into next week out. Sounds like they're calling for quite a bit of rain, so it'd be nice to be able to, if we could put that patch on there. And they said they could do it before the rains came. So for the entire roof of the central office there is looking at $360,100, and that does not include any additional decking replacement. And I know there's some decking throughout the building that needs to be replaced. We found multiple soft spots walking around up there, so not good news at all. I know we don't want to dump any money into that building, but I just wanted to make it aware to everybody and see what we should do for our next steps.
Randy, can you clarify what you meant by that rubber patch? The
Yeah,
$10,000?
yeah. So it's exactly what's on the roof right now. They would cut it to the size of the roof and glue it down. So we would have a giant rubber Band-Aid right over the boardroom, and they said it'd probably last for a few weeks, 4 or 5 weeks maybe. You know, if it started to come up, we could go back up there and glue it down again until we were able to vacate that building, or probably not vacate the building, but get the real repair done to it.
Well, I'll start things off by saying that I simply don't feel it's the right thing to do to put $360,000, $370,000 into this building. For years, we've talked about it, and facility committee, the last 2 facility committee reports, chaired by Paul, both reports, so that goes back at least 10 years, has indicated that this building is not, first off, if the roof were fine, the building is still not adequate for our needs. And we've outgrown it. And to put $350,000-$360,000 into this place, that whoever buys this from us will most likely be tearing it down, or doing a heck of a lot more improvements to it than we would be willing to do. So I've needed to come here in person tonight to see exactly what it looked like in this room. And I don't want to be in here on Thursday when it's raining like crazy, and water's probably coming in all over the place. What about beyond this room? You showed a map of the whole place. Do we have leaks elsewhere? Ongoing current leaks, or have we got it stopped elsewhere in the building? Oh, Randy froze up.
So I know he talked about, sorry. Last week he shared that there is it isn't leaking, but there is a really low dipped area by the kitchen, our break room. So is he back? So originally the roofer who was here last time, he said that spot in our break room kitchen area was worse than this spot.
Yeah, that's
And so when we reported out what was happening here, that person, I think, was surprised because they felt like the area over the break room was worse. Randy, at that point, we had even talked about closing the break room and like kind of, sectioning it off so people didn't go in there. Due to the pandemic, no one really eats lunch in there anymore. Everyone eats at their desk because of, social distancing and things like that, not, eating with masks and all that. So we don't use that as a break room space right now, which is probably the only reason why we haven't blocked it off, but it is supposed to be almost as bad as the spot that's here. Those
I'm
are the
back.
only-
Sorry. I got
Yeah,
kicked
there
off.
it is.
Sorry about that. I missed all of John's question or at the
So
end.
John asked if there were other bad spots, and I just mentioned the spot by the kitchen.
Yeah, in the kitchen area, there's a bad spot. On the, there's just multiple bad, really soft spots when you walk around up there, especially around the edges.
I congratulate you for having the courage to walk on the roof.
Yeah, I'm a big guy to be up there, but especially when it's really as bad as it is. But then on the south side, there's a few spots, but I don't know. I don't want to take a chance on we have to do that $10,000 patch. We don't have a choice for that, I don't think. I don't want to take a chance on that lasting more than a few months. I really, unfortunately, think we need to go ahead with the repair. $60,100, whatever, or $500. I don't think there's any way around that. And I agree with you, John. I don't think we need to put $300,000 to $400,000 into that roof.
I'm getting lost in your numbers, Randy. You said a $10,000 rubber
A
patch.
$10,000 rubber patch.
So where did the
would-
60,000?
The 60,000 is the repair for the roof above the boardroom. Right in there, yeah. So we'd end up putting 70,000. We'd end up putting $70,000 into that boardroom roof.
I think the 10,000 was just to get us through the weekend
Yes,
with all the rain.
but it should last a few weeks or maybe a couple months, but it's not going to be a permanent repair.
I think if it lasts a couple months, that's what we ought to do and cross our fingers and hope. I don't even really want to spend the $60,000.
Yeah, well, it's going to take us longer than 2 or 3 months to figure out how to find an alternative space for everything else. At this point, John, I think we should have to, we're kind of forced into doing the quickie Band-Aid plus the patch that'll at least get us through the summer. It's good. I mean, we're not going to be able to execute a move out of this building during the rest of the school year, not with everything else going on. It's the move would have to, at the earliest, be happening over the summer. So we're going to need something to get us at least to that point. And unfortunately, yes, it's going to involve spending $70,000, but I don't see an alternative.
I agree. I assumed that's why Randy gave us all, the breakdown by the section of the roof, because I assumed that meant that there are some things that we could live with for another year. I mean, they're not great, but they're not, it's not this. And if we could only repair the things that are dire, which sounds like it's the boardroom, and we could live without the break room, then I think we should do that, because I wish we could move out tomorrow, but we can't, and we don't want to do anything hasty. So 60,000 is better than, well, 60,000 plus the $10,000 cash. 70,000 is better than the 370,000 that we, the total package, which would just be horrendous if we had to do that. So it sounds like we think we could live with the $60,000 repair. I mean, after the rubber patch and the 60,000, maybe we can hobble along for, 6 months, 8 months, maybe. I mean, the other.
Yeah. That $60,590 repair would actually, come with warranty. So we would have, we should be good for a few years on that, quite a few years. That'd be like a fairly new roof up there. The $10,000 patch, they thought we'd get by a few weeks, up to a couple months with that.
Okay.
Like Paul said, I don't think we can get out in a couple months.
And Randy, is is the $60,000 just for this section? That's not fixing the break room section and all the other soft spots.
No, just the boardroom,
Well,
the hallway
with
there by the
Paul's
restrooms too.
with Paul's comments in mind about the timing of moving out of this building, I think if we have to fix it in order to get by until the end of the school year, I wouldn't want the next board to be saddled with looking at this in October, November, the next time it snows, because it was the snow that sat on the roof that created the problem from the big snow. I think we should advise, we here with experience should advise the new board. It should be one of the things that is communicated to the new members, that we need to depopulate this building. We may not be able to move everybody out of the building, but we need to get out of the building so that something doesn't happen next winter and we're forced to move because water's pouring through the roof in the middle of the school year. I guess maybe that's one good thing, is that right now I think there's a substantial amount of office space in the city of Urbana that is potentially available, and we should do a dual-pronged process here. Get the roof fixed, but also begin to work with whoever in the administration is appropriate to perhaps identify some alternate spaces to depopulate the building. Maybe not empty the building, but get the building depopulated so we get out from underneath the worst parts of the roof. And I don't know what that means. This is all new. We haven't talked about it very much, so I don't know if it's even possible to depopulate the building without taking it down to zero. I don't know if, I'm sorry, my mask keeps, I don't know if the roof over adult ed is as bad as the roof over the break room and the part of the building that's used for Burkholder Service Center functions. Those judgments might indicate where we can leave some divisions here and decrease our rental expense. And then this obviously accelerates the need for us to take a look at how we're going to replace the Burkholder Center. And we just purchased some land with the idea of putting central office down close to the middle school. And part of that land was given to us with that process in mind. So we've got a head start on getting something ready, but maybe we need to accelerate our issues of getting building designed and ready to go.
The bills come due. I mean, we've known about this for a very, very long time. We knew it was going to happen, and the bills arrived. We've got to pay it now. So, yeah, I think we have to get creative in terms of how to depopulate this building. Many people are working from home. I don't know if it's possible for every central office employee, but maybe some percentage of them can do some amount of their work from home to help alleviate the need for renting office space or finding space in other buildings. And it's going to be rough. There's no two ways around it. But until we can build a proper central office or find one, we're going to have to make do with lots of creativity.
So Paul chaired this facilities committee, and facilities committee was very, very clear that we needed to, in a parallel track, pursue new administrative space while we were pursuing the Thomas Payne project and the Wiley project. We've pursued the Thomas Payne project. We've kind of pursued the administrative project in terms of having a family generously gift us some space for it. And we just need to keep those parallel tracks going. We just need to speed up the administrative one a little bit, unfortunately.
There you go. I didn't think about occupying, open office space, and I know there is quite a bit of open office space. I mean, the way Unifor did when they were doing all of their school
Sure.
renovations, they all, their central office all moved into that space on Windsor.
Mhm.
I mean, why not pursue that in, with full speed? Why not move all of central office into an open office space while we build our, the space that we intended to build, and we will, at the new Vine Street property? Why not pursue that?
I think that needs to be on the table, Peggy, very
Uh-huh.
much on the table.
Yeah. I mean, there's a cost in that, but we're paying a cost here, so if we're just transferring the cost of here to there at minus all these costly repairs, boy, I actually would be in favor of that. I mean, can Carol or whoever is your
Yes.
property guru
Mhm.
just scope out what the possibilities are? I mean,
We can do that. And then we had someone that we thought about leasing some space, and and then we haven't really explored it. But yeah, we can have that conversation again. I know it, like Paul said, it's been something that's been talked about for years. So I know there are different groups who approached the, previous superintendents. I think when Dr. Williams was here, even when Dr. Owen was here,
yeah.
the conversation has been discussed, but we haven't ever moved in any direct, real meaningful way to get to that point. But I think now, I love your description, Paul. The bill is due,
Yeah, the
and it
bill
is
is
time
due.
for us now to
Yeah.
kind of really reinvigorate that conversation and with purpose. So.
Those are good points. We don't want the public to think that we're starting from, like, this was just totally out of left field, that we didn't know anything about this. We knew, like Paul said, we knew it was going to happen. It just happened a little faster than what we thought. But there are, some of the initial groundwork has been done. And various places have been looked at. And so we're not starting from ground zero, but we're also not at the end of the line. We don't have financing lined up
Yeah.
and all kinds of things that need to be done. But we're not at ground zero. We're a little ways down the road. And so we've got a little bit of a head start.
I mean, is there any way that we can, it's not going to be pretty, temporary digs. They're not going to be pretty. They're not going to be practical. And I mean, between cobbling together, maybe people working from home and different people being broken up, potentially, we discussed at one meeting about having our board meetings at one of the schools, which again, isn't pretty and it's not practical, but if it has to be done, it has to be done. For the twice a month that we meet, it just means schlepping over paperwork. Lori's going to have to haul stuff over with her for our meetings, but I mean, we can live with it temporarily. If it means having to break things up just a little bit to help us get established, we don't want to get too comfortable in whatever temporary digs we got anyway. So I'm in favor of trying to find some creative alternate spaces, but I really don't want to put any extra pennies into this that we have to, just fix it up, patch it up, and let's keep moving.
So would the board be comfortable with charging our facilities committee with coming up with or assisting this administration in coming up with potential solutions for all these problems?
I would be in favor of that.
I would be in favor.
You guys are in the
Yes.
best position. Yep.
No, that was Tori. She said
Tori,
yes.
she was just saying yes. She
Yes.
agreed. She was
Yeah.
agreeing.
There's other governmental units in Urbana that might be willing to help us out too. We've helped other governmental units out at times. So for
Yes.
board meeting space, for instance, and where we can continue to be on television so the Republic can continue to, there's other, there's other options. in front of us.
I agree.
Yeah.
Even if everybody's got to be spaced out in different places
Sure.
across the city or whatever, like that. Dealing with this right now, like we're saying, it's just going to be a bandage for a little while. And, to do like the temporary patch. A building this old and for as much damage, and now it's, leaking, to this degree, we know that there's more infrastructure that is damaged that they're not seeing until they start ripping things apart. So this bill's gonna be going up. Because even with my hail damage on one of my garages, we found far more that was not even noticeable. And so the little bit I got on the garage and insurance, there's a heck of a lot more that came out of my bank account for it. So it's sort of a given. We're looking very possibly more than the 70,000. And then at the same time, when you're putting, there's going to be a whole lot of replacement. There just is probably. And then when you do that, it's almost like putting stress on other things around the edges that aren't up to snuff as well. So we'll have a domino effect, or every little bit of everything that's close to, probably starting with this season, is going to make itself known here and there. But we can't get to the point where we're declared inhabitable.
Yes.
The city comes in and puts a great big sign on the front door, stay out. We can't have that. We can't have roofs coming in and damaging what we need to take to another location. So we kind of we've got to fast track this.
And Randy hates it when I use the M word, but anytime there's water, there's mold.
Oh.
And, today was a really warm day, and pretty soon air conditioning will be on instead of heat. And if we don't get this figured out soon, you're right, then we won't have a choice but to be, because, it might not be safe for us to be here.
So Jennifer, what do you and Randy need from the board for direction
So
tonight?
tonight, I think we wanted to get your direction. We know there's rain coming, so we need to do something to make sure we don't have buckets of water coming through here in the next Thursday, Friday, and over the weekend. So Randy said, yes, it's supposed to rain all night. I think we're supposed to get like 3 inches. So I think the person that Randy's working with can get the rubber patch on between now and Thursday, which if the board is okay with that, we want to definitely move forward with that. I agree. I think we can't avoid the $60,000 cost, because we can't, as you all have said, we can't leave right now. We don't have any other options. We need to explore. And I love the idea of getting the facilities committee together to pull those options for us, and we can come back and talk about money and costs and what we might choose to do for the rest of the year. But I think first we wanted to find out if we needed it. We would have to bid this out too, would be another piece of even the $60,000, $70,000 part. We have to create an RFP and we have to bid it. So before we did that work, we wanted to make sure that you were on board with us moving in that direction. So I think the $10,000 patch we have to do just to get through the week and the weekend, and then we would have to bid out the $60,000 to $70,000 cost, and that would be the next piece.
My only comment is Randy said that the patch might last weeks or months. By the time you bid this out and a contractor actually gets here on site, it would be May 1st, May 15th, which is only a couple weeks from summer break, when we can begin to vacate the building. So we can start the process, but and not get stuck here. But I would like to see both processes go again simultaneously. And if we get to the point where we can adequately relocate, our tech guy's looking at me like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to relocate the whole system. But if we can relocate within weeks of when we would actually start working on the roof, I'd rather not do the 60,000 and just get out of here and let it go.
The bid process will take 4 to 6 weeks easily.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point, John. if we could find alternative space, or an actionable plan to vacate the space by the time our roof will be repaired, then we should do that and not accept the bids that we're seeking. So,
Yeah, no, I
We
would
could-
support that too. So we don't have to obligate ourselves to the $60,000 repair. We can take it up to the very last minute, and if some suitable space comes forward, which seems very
Yeah.
possible between now and middle of May, then we just all
Yeah.
get our boxes and start moving.
that seems
Okay.
very wise.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Tori? What are your,
Yep, I had agreed earlier.
okay, so, Randy, we're gonna move forward with the 10,000, and then I love the idea of getting the facilities committee going and talking at the same time we'll start the bid. I agree with you, Peggy. I think once we get a couple people out here to look at this for the bids, there might be others, or whoever said that, Ruthann, there are gonna be other things that might develop or might be there that we don't know about. So, yeah, so we will do that. So John and Paul, I'll be getting, I'm
Yeah.
assuming you guys are okay with John and Paul and the facilities committee kind of working with us on this. Perfect.
So for purposes of our public, understand that this is an emergency repair and it falls under the Open Meetings Act is in terms of an emergency. And that's why we're able to give direction tonight and move forward. It's also at $10,000. It's well within the administrative capabilities. But I just want to make clear to our public that that how the agenda got changed and all that is it falls under the emergency provisions of the Open Meetings Act. Because we've got water coming in, and that falls under the act. It's as if the building had burnt or something along those lines prior to emergencies that we've had.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. You clarified that from the point at the beginning of the meeting when we had an addition or a modification to the agenda. That's why it was an emergency. It wasn't done. We didn't know any of this stuff on Friday. Well, we kind of knew, but we didn't know it was going to be this bad.
We didn't know it was going to be raining. 3
We didn't know
inches.
the
Yes.
forecast. but Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, thank you for that. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Randy, and everybody else, and good luck to you all. I hope everybody stays safe while they're getting things done this week. Okay, moving on to 11.0, we have consent and individual action items for this evening. So we'll start with tonight's consent items, starting with 11.1, the minutes of the February 16th and March 2nd business and study session meetings. 11.2, advance approval of the February bills for payment, which was the copies of the bill are included with the April board agenda materials. Advance approval, is that typical? I can't remember if we've done advanced stuff regularly, so it's consent, it's pretty pop. July, thank you. Of spring break, thank you. I was looking at it going, okay, I know okay. All right, 11.3 personnel items, we have approval needed for those, and 11.4 administrative personnel item. 11.5 is Press Plus issue 106, which Jennifer outlined for us last week, which we had notes on, but if anybody has a question on that before we take a vote, we can certainly do that. The revised board policies updated by the Illinois Association of School Boards. Those are our consent items, so I would like a
And I
motion.
think Angie, are you in there? Did you want to say
Yep.
anything about the personnel? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, I forgot.
Sure. Did you want me to acknowledge? I can acknowledge maybe after the consent items are passed, or do you want me to say something now?
After.
Afterwards is fine.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I need a motion then to approve these action items.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please, Ruthann.
Member Carter,
Yes.
member Demmett,
Yes.
member Patton.
yes,
Member Pulaski,
Yes.
member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes, motion passes. And now Angie, if you'd like to step in for just a minute.
Yeah, sure. So we typically don't highlight just individuals out of our personnel items, but I think that we have somebody special that we wanted to highlight. We love it when alumni come back to work for us. And so Todd was very fortunate to hire Kevin Cosley, a 2000 grad from Urbana High School, as a clinical professional, and he will be working at Urbana High School in the fall. And so he has spent the last 10 years in Peoria Public Schools as a social worker. He received his bachelor's at Millikan University and then a master's in social work down in New Orleans. And so I think that I just missed him when I started in the Urbana School District, but I believe that he was in choir with Willie Somerville, because just looking back at some pictures. And so I'm pretty sure that I had his brother and his cousin in class. So I'm excited to become reacquainted with Kevin, and we're trying to see if we can find something for his wife as well. And so in the fall and throughout the year, we have several people that have come to advocate and ask, you know, just especially when we were talking in the fall, asking for more people of color, especially in our clinical professional positions and our social work positions and our counseling positions. And we're really excited. Not only is he an African-American male, but he's an Urbana grad. And so we're thrilled that he is coming back home and leaving Peoria Public Schools, come back to Urbana. So we wanted to say, welcome home, Kevin Cosley, class of 2000.
Say, Angie, I would just also add that means both of our clinical professionals, because we also have Crystal Powell at the high school. Crystal is also a UHS grad.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, even better. So there's kind of a vested interest when you have graduated from the school. So it's great. That's it.
Well, thank you. That's great to hear. Welcome. Pleased to have both people back and everybody back who's on the list. Okay, 12.0 action items. We have some individual items to vote on. First off, 12.1, we have gifts. The Falk family donated $100 for a tree to be planted at Urbana High School in memory of Larry Salava. The Urbana High School Science Department received an anonymous $800 donation. And Staples of Champaign donated a new office chair and 7 large boxes of school and office supplies to be used throughout the district. So I need roll call, please, or for motion, please, to accept the gifts and to send thank you letters.
So moved, acceptance.
We have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton.
Yes.
Member Pulaski.
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes, motion passes, and thank you to our donors for their generous gifts. 12.2 is the adoption of the resolution authorizing the honorable dismissal of full-time education support personnel. I don't know if we need to say much about this or if anybody needs, nope. Okay, so that's an individual item. We'll need a roll call or a motion, please, for that one as well.
With regret, I move approval.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton.
Yes.
Member Pulaski,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum
Yes.
and President Hall.
With regret, yes. Motion passes.
Yeah, we really didn't.
Yeah,
That time of year.
It's that time of
it is.
year.
I was just gonna say, Angie, did you want to say something about? Okay.
Sure, I can. With the RIFs this year, we're actually very pleased that we did not have to RIF any of our teaching staff, and so the RIFs that we had to do this year were all expected RIFs, and so we have grants that we have a lot of grant funded positions that we had to RIF, and we have to RIF every year, and we fully expect the grants to come back to us in the fall where we'll be able to reoffer positions to people. And then there were a couple of part-time positions that were RIFed, and the employees are being offered full-time positions. And so the jobs are actually increasing in hours. And so that's a good thing. So the jobs aren't being taken away. They're actually being offered more time. And so there's not an elimination of positions. We're just waiting for grants to come back in, and no certified teaching positions were lost. And so this is actually a very minimal year in RIFs. And so while we don't want to RIF anyone, when you are dealing with grants, that happens. And everyone was informed well in advance. So we had personal contacts made. So this should not be a surprise to any of our people.
Thanks for that explanation. And it is a much smaller list than in times past, so it's, at least it's good to see. Thanks.
And it's
Angie.
an outgrowth of state law that forces
Yep.
us to do this.
Yep. Yep, thank you. Thank you for the
Mhm.
clarification. And on that note, 12.3, our last action item is the adoption of the resolution authorizing the dismissal of part-time educational support personnel, which pretty much falls under the same thing that Angie was talking about with the past item. So roll call, or motion, please, first.
I move acceptance of that.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded by Paul. Roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton.
Yes.
Member Pulaski,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes, with regret, but motion passes. Okay. Moving on to 13.0, call for future special or executive meetings, of which there are none at this time. So 14.0, we move on to our superintendent's report.
Okay, John's gonna pull that up. So I'm gonna veer a little different direction than what I normally do. I normally spend this time to do celebrations and praise and kind of acknowledgements, but today I want to share a little information with the board and the public who might be watching. We have recently received some new guidance. Whoops, there we go. Thank you, John. Yeah, just yesterday, as you guys have been following the progress that the state of Illinois and Champaign County is moving in at a much faster pace than the rest of our state in terms of vaccinating staff. So we fully expected that as the rest of the nation is getting people vaccinated, that we would be seeing some additional guidance and recommendation from CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and from IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health. So we received both in 2 days. So yesterday we received some interim public health guidance, recommendations for fully vaccinated staff. We've already been sharing pretty widely the last 3 weeks, I'd say, travel guidance from the CDC. Spring break is next week. So we've been sharing information with parents and with staff around domestic air travel. As you guys know, I don't need to, I'm not a doctor or an epidemiologist. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the variants, but I know even though we're vaccinated, there are some precautions that we still need to take in that, even in regard to travel. We've talked with our staff about the expectation for when they return, if they're vaccinated or not vaccinated. So we've been pretty transparent with that. Staff are really working with their administrators. So the CDC shared guidance around vaccinated people who are fully vaccinated related to travel. Just yesterday, they shared additional information about social distancing and mask wearing for people who are fully vaccinated. So we just received this information about people being able to gather in single households, people still mask wearing. I think the point I want to make tonight is when you're in your homes and when you're with your family and your immediate friends, if you're all vaccinated and you follow some different rules, that's okay. But because we're a public body and a public entity, when we're in our schools, I've been getting a lot of questions. Are we not going to have to wear masks anymore? So that is not what the CDC recommendation was saying. I think they were sending very specific guidance for people's homes and for small gatherings and things that you're doing, as you're visiting with family and friends. But because we are in a public body and we technically aren't, asking people, yes, we're talking about who's vaccinated. We know who came through our vaccination clinic. A lot of our teachers and staff have been vaccinated in other places. So I feel really good about the fact that we have a very high vaccination rate. However, it would be prudent of all of us to still follow the guidelines that CDC is putting in place, even for fully vaccinated people. So if you look at this, it's still saying we need to continue to wear our masks. We need to continue to social distance, avoid large size gatherings. I do want to encourage people to continue to get tested. We still will keep our drive-through testing going for the rest of the year. We're still working with the University of Illinois to get the saliva testing going. We were supposed to do our pilot tomorrow, but they delayed it a little bit further, but it is coming. I'm keeping really positive about that. It will happen. So we just want to continue to, I know it's tough. I know people are getting really worn down. And I think the more people, the more we reach that kind of herd immunity in our community around the number of people that are vaccinated, people are really wanting to step away from some of our guidelines. I just want to reinforce that because our students haven't been vaccinated, adults, not every single adult in our district has been vaccinated, that we still need to kind of adhere to our social and physical distancing guidelines. Today, this is hot off the press. We received new guidance from the state, from ISBE, Illinois State Board, as well as IDPH around social distancing. So as long as we've been talking with you guys about this, we've been talking about maintaining 6 feet and how important it is in all settings, all spaces, to maintain the 6-foot social distance. However, ISB came out today and said that social distancing for in-person learning can now be defined as 3 to 6 feet for staff that are, again, fully vaccinated. Maintaining 6 feet remains the safest distance for our staff members who are not vaccinated at this time. So this will provide teachers a little more flexibility. I know you guys have heard this from some of your constituents. I've heard it from parents via email. We still have a lot of families who are not sending their students back at the elementary level because the students are very tied to their computers, their devices. So this 3 to 6 feet will hopefully allow our teachers a little more flexibility to move around the room. You know, they've been kind of in a bubble in the classrooms because they have to kind of maintain that 6-foot distance. But now that if you're vaccinated, you can now move around, you can, you know, be a little closer to the students. So I'm hoping that'll provide a little more flexibility for the in-person learning that our students will experience fourth quarter. Universal masking is still very much a recommendation from ISB. And again, I just kind of threw the definition of what that means because we are getting many, many questions from people regarding mask wearing. But even though ISB said, yes, social distancing can now be defined as 3 to 6 feet, they're just like the CDC are still saying we still have to continue to wear our masks. So I'm putting that in my superintendent report tonight because I think the guidance coming out today and yesterday is confusing people a little bit. And I think we're, you know, all getting really comfortable. We're all tired of wearing these masks. We want to be in spaces where everyone's vaccinated. We can be a little more free. But again, because we are, you know, around, you know, a wide variety of people in our hallways and our open settings, and we are not going to start singling out the people who are not vaccinated versus the people who are. We're just going to, you know, maintain the status quo and continue to keep following our guidelines as we have set forth. And I just wanted to say that out loud. So I know a lot of our staff are thinking that. I've had my vaccine now. I can be a little freer or a little more open in terms of what they might do in their own classroom. We've said from the very beginning, when you're in your room and you're by yourself, if you have your door off, I sit in my office without my mask on all the time. But when I go out into public settings, you know, in the hallway or to the restroom or wherever, I make sure I put it on. So we just want to maintain that is our stance and our policy. We'll continue to look for more guidance from the state board as we have started scenario planning for next year. Hopefully, in the meetings to come, we'll be able to bring more recommendations about what we hope next year will look like. I am a little disappointed that it took ISB this long to bring us this information because now it's troubling me a little bit around when will we get some information for 21-22. But we can't wait for that. So we're going forward and beginning our own scenario planning, and hopefully the guidance from ISB will follow soon. So comments or questions?
Yes.
I normally we don't do that, but I can tell
Is that
Peggy
all right?
wants to ask me something.
Yes. Does this mean for those staff who are fully vaccinated and we can, you know, reduce the distancing to 3 feet, that some of our classrooms can take a few more students Was it the elementary, middle, and high school?
Now, at the elementary, we have opened, I mean,
Uh-huh.
anybody who wants to come back, we have asked people to come back. So I
Okay.
think we have really exhausted, and we, again, have offered to every single, we
Okay.
haven't turned down people.
No
And
one's
we've-
turned away, okay.
We've really, and at early childhood as well, I think
Okay.
they've really accommodated people who wanted to be back. We've made sure that they could be back.
Okay.
At the middle school and high school, I still don't think we're ready to do our full hybrid,
Uh-huh.
but we are, as parents reach out to me, as parents reach out to you, if you send me names and parents that really want their students back, we're making sure they're offered a
Okay.
space.
Okay.
So I'll say that again out loud here. If you have a
Uh-huh.
middle school, or high school student and you want them back at the, in the building in person, you just need to contact me or contact the building principal and we will make that happen.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yep.
Jennifer, what was the percentage of the teachers who took advantage of the vaccination? Do you know
So
what those
with us-
numbers were like?
Yes, so of all of our staff, not just teachers, about 70% of our faculty have been vaccinated. But what we're finding is as we're starting to dig a little deeper, as we started planning for spring break travel and, wondering who we might have to provide subs for following spring break, we're finding that there are a lot more of our staff who are vaccinated that we didn't realize. So we have the Gerber staff, it was fully vaccinated. They were allowed to be vaccinated as part of 1A. There was a special related service group for special educators. So many of our social workers, speech and language, psychs, and most people at Gerber took advantage of the 1A vaccination. So they didn't come through our clinic, but they've been vaccinated. We have teachers who live in other counties who we have found have gone and they were vaccinated wherever they live. We have people who've gone to Walgreens. So our number is a lot higher than we even originally thought. We knew we were at about 70%, but we are actually a little higher than that. I don't have a final number yet, Tori, because John and I have a little spreadsheet that we're keeping. And as we hear back from people, we're updating that. But I'd say, what would you say, John? We're closer to 75 or 80% maybe?
I think over 75 is a
At
very
least.
reasonable estimate. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. I am going to move on to FOIAs if there aren't any more. Okay, questions or comments. So thank you for indulging me with that. Normally I don't do that in the superintendent report. But since that guidance was so new and so fresh, and I was getting a lot of questions, I thought I'd say something tonight. And of course, I will put that, this information in the superintendent update for the week. So on to FOIAs. Joseph Hughes, all data metrics, information, analytics, scientific analysis, research papers, reports, articles, websites, references, treaties, or abstracts read, reviewed, considered, debated, analyzed, or relied on by the USD 116 School Board or Administration in determining whether student learning during the COVID-19 pandemic should occur via in-person learning, remote learning, or a hybrid, incorporating elements of both, as well as length of school day. Also, an agreement or memorandum of agreement between USD 116 and any labor organization which was specifically entered into in relation to COVID-19. That was completed and fulfilled. ProPublica, Chicago Tribune, records that show all incidents that included referral to law enforcement, including school-based resource officers, and the underlying offense during the 2018-19, 2019-20, and 2020-21 school years that did not result in arrest. Records that show all arrests of students made inside the school district and the underlying offense during the 18-19, 19-20, and 2021 school years. Records that show the gender and race of students referred to law enforcement, arrested, and or issued a citation or a ticket in the 18-19, 19-20, or 2021 school years. Records that show all incidents in which students were issued a ticket, citation for an ordinance violation during 18-19, 19-20, or 21 school years. That's also been fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Board reports.
we have any board members with a report? I just have a short announcement. I wanted to remind our listeners that the League of Women Voters of Champaign County and the NAACP of Champaign County are co-sponsoring candidate forums for the April 6th local municipal election. And videos of those forums which include candidates for Urbana School Board Subdistricts 3 and 7, will be available on the League of Women Voters of Champaign County website starting March 12th, so starting next week. You go to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County website and select the candidates forums page. It's very easy. So League of Women Voters, Champaign County, just Google that and you'll bring it right up, and select the candidate forums page starting next week. And you can go right to those taped forums. Also, early voting for the April 6th election, which not only includes school board, but also Urbana City Council and Park Commissioner, begins March 12th as well. So early voting begins next week. So thank you.
Thanks, Peggy. Any other board members have a report?
Yeah, the Urbana High School band parents has become aware of the little investigatory work that we did to take a look and see if our band facility could be modified and expanded. And they're pretty excited about it and are prepared to help raise money to help make the project happen in terms of a public-private partnership. So once again, I was part of the group that kind of kicked this thing off, and I may not be here. So I wanted to let the board know that that project has caught the imagination of a lot of folks, especially when we were able to report that the architect who did the work in Unit 4 felt that a comparable facility to what has just been established at Centennial and Central is possible in Urbana High School with some modification for less money than what we were thinking about spending on the roof up here.
Wow.
So that's a good sign, and it's good that the parent, in particular, it's the marching band parent group, that has gotten pretty excited about this and is preparing. They're not started yet, but they're preparing to help raise money.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Someday soon, we'll be able to actually hear concerts live from all of our students.
I was surprised at some of the things we found out, that many of the band instruments can't go out the door that was originally designed for the band to access the football field.
Oh my
They have to
gosh.
go down the hallway into the double doors and come out the double doors because the door is too narrow to fit the xylophones and
Oh, wow.
some of the other instruments that they use. Also, they can never have all the instruments in the band room with the kids because there's not enough space. Because we've added our band is, first off, is larger, but second of all, the breadth of instruments that are being used in marching band is so different now than it was just as recently as 5-6 years ago. And so that's a part of the high school that needs some attention.
Absolutely. And our band families are very dedicated and passionate to the arts, so I'm glad that they're weighing in on it and giving
I'm
their
married to a
opinions.
person that was president of the band group when my kids were in high school, so I full well understand.
Yes. Well, be excited to see what they come up with. Any other reports for this evening? Thanks, John. No, seeing none, I guess we need a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded, roll call, please.
Member Carter.
yes.
Member Demmett.
Yes.
Member Patton.
Yes.
Member Pulaski.
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, meeting is adjourned and we will see everybody in April, correct? Happy spring break, everybody, next week.